The security guard had already taken the waitress by the arm when the billionaire laughed and said, "If you can speak this language, I'll give you $10,000. For 1 second, the entire ballroom went silent. The Grand Meridian Hotel was glowing like a palace that night. Crystal chandeliers hung above the room like frozen stars. Silver forks rested beside plates no one had touched. Champagne glasses shimmered under cold white light. At the center of the private banquet hall sat Richard Lawson, a billionaire CEO whose face appeared on business magazines and charity walls. A man used to having people stand when he entered a room. But tonight, Richard Lawson looked helpless. Across the long table sat 3 investors from Lithuania. They had flown halfway across the world for a business deal worth $200 million. The contract was ready. The lawyers were ready. The cameras for the official handshake were waiting near the wall. Only one person was missing: the interpreter. Richard's assistant had called him 7 times. No answer. His legal team tried using translation apps, but every sentence came out broken and awkward. The investors grew colder by the minute. The oldest man among them, Mr. Waitress, finally closed the contract folder and pushed it away. Richard's jaw tightened. He could buy hotels, companies, politicians, and silence. But he could not buy trust. That was when Emily Carter entered with a tray of water glasses. She was 26, wearing a white waitress uniform with faded cuffs and black shoes worn thin at the heels. Her hair was tied back quickly, with one loose strand resting against her cheek. She looked tired, the kind of tired that came from working double shifts and still worrying about rent. She was supposed to refill the glasses and disappear. But when Mr. Waitress spoke in Lithuanian, Emily stopped walking. The tray trembled slightly in her hands. Richard noticed immediately. "Is there a problem?" he asked. Emily lowered her eyes. "No, sir." One of the lawyers turned sharply. "Then keep moving. This is a private meeting." Emily nodded and tried to step away, but Mr. Waitress spoke again. His voice was low, bitter, almost hurt, and this time Emily understood every word. The lawyer snapped his fingers toward security. "Get her out." A guard stepped forward and grabbed Emily's arm. Water spilled over the edge of the tray and ran down her sleeve. A few guests laughed softly, not because anything was funny, but because powerful people had decided she was the joke. Richard leaned back in his chair and smiled. "You were listening," he said. "I didn't mean to," Emily whispered. "To a language you don't understand?" More laughter moved across the table. Emily's face burned, but she said nothing. Her fingers brushed against the pocket of her apron, where a small blue book rested against her side. Its cover was old and faded. Inside it was a photograph her mother had kept for years. Richard lifted his glass. "If you can speak this language," he said loudly, "I'll give you $10,000. The room laughed again, but Emily did not. She slowly set the tray down. Her hands were still wet. Her heart was beating hard, but her voice came out calm. "He said the problem is not the money," Emily said. "The problem is that he believes you are hiding something in the final page of the contract." The laughter died instantly. Richard's smile disappeared. Mr. Waitress leaned forward, staring at her as if a ghost had just spoken. Richard stood up. "Who told you that?" "No one," Emily said. Then she turned to Mr. Waitress and spoke in clear, fluent Lithuanian. The old investor's face changed. His eyes widened, then softened with something deeper than surprise. When Emily finished her sentence, he slowly placed one trembling hand over his mouth. Richard looked from Emily to the investor. "What did you say to him?" Mr. Waitress answered before Emily could. "She said something," he whispered, "that only one family in this world should know."
Emily Carter had grown up in places where people learned to be quiet. Small apartments with thin walls. Bus stops under cold rain. Hotel back corridors where workers moved fast, spoke softly, and disappeared before guests turned their heads. By the time she was 10, Emily already knew how to read a room. She knew which managers were angry before they opened their mouths. She knew which customers would complain just to feel important. She knew that poor people were often expected to apologize for taking up space. Her mother, Anna, had taught her something different. Never let the world decide how much you are worth, she would say, folding hotel sheets with red, tired hands. The world is often wrong. Anna worked in the laundry department of an old downtown hotel. She left home before sunrise and returned after dark, smelling of soap, steam, and exhaustion. When Emily was little, she would sit on an upside-down plastic crate near the dryers, doing homework while machines thundered around her. That was where the blue book first appeared. It was small, old, and faded at the corners. Anna kept it wrapped in a white cloth at the bottom of her bag, as if it were something holy. Inside were Lithuanian words written beside English meanings. Some pages had notes in Anna's handwriting. Others had another handwriting Emily did not recognize, stronger, slanted, masculine. At first, Emily thought it was just a language book. Her mother treated it like a memory. Every night, when the laundry room emptied and the hotel became quiet, Anna would open the book and teach Emily one word at a time. "This means bread," Anna whispered. "This means home. This means remember." Emily would repeat the words carefully, not understanding why her mother's eyes became wet whenever she turned certain pages. One evening, Emily found an old photograph tucked inside the book. It showed a young man standing beside a train station, wearing a brown coat and lifting one hand as if he were saying goodbye. "Who is he?" Emily asked. Anna took the photo gently. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she answered, "Someone who was kind when kindness cost him everything." Emily never forgot that sentence. Years passed. The blue book followed them through every hardship. It sat on kitchen tables beside unpaid bills. It lay open beside cheap bowls of soup. It traveled in Anna's bag when they moved from one apartment to another. And when Anna became sick, the book became even more important. On her worst nights, when her cough shook her whole body, Anna still asked Emily to read. "Promise me you'll keep learning," she said. Emily held her mother's thin hand. "Why does it matter so much?" Anna looked toward the window, where city lights blurred through the rain. "Because one day," she whispered, "this language may open a door I was never able to reach." 2 months later, Anna was gone. Emily was 17. There was no big family around her, no inheritance, no safety net. Just a plastic hospital bag, a few clothes, and the blue book with the old photograph still inside. After that, Emily worked wherever she could. Diners, hotels, banquet halls, morning shifts, night shifts. Anything that paid rent. People saw a waitress. They did not see a girl studying Lithuanian on the last bus home. They did not see her whispering words beneath a broken lamp. They did not see her carrying a promise in her apron pocket. And that night, in Richard Lawson's glittering ballroom, when she heard the investors speaking that language, Emily felt something inside her stop. Then she heard one name. Waitress. The same name written on the back of the photograph. Her mother's door had finally appeared. Richard Lawson did not like being embarrassed. He especially did not like being embarrassed by someone wearing a waitress uniform. The ballroom remained silent after Emily translated the investor's words. The laughter that had filled the room only moments earlier was gone now, replaced by the soft hum of chandeliers and the nervous shifting of expensive shoes against marble. Richard looked from Emily to the Lithuanian investors, then back to his legal team, searching for someone to restore the order he was used to. His attorney cleared his throat. "Mr. Lawson, we should not take this seriously." She could have overheard something. Staff walk in and out all evening. Emily stood still. The security guard had released her arm, but she could still feel the pressure of his fingers there. Her sleeve was wet from the spilled water. Her heart was pounding so hard she felt it in her throat. Yet she did not step back. Richard folded his arms. "So tell me, Emily. How does a waitress know Lithuanian?" The word waitress landed harder than it should have. It was not the job that hurt her. Work had never shamed her. What hurt was the way he said it, as if a person who carried trays could not carry knowledge. "I learned it at home," she said. A few people exchanged looks. The attorney gave a thin smile. At home. Convenient. Mr. Vitkis, the silver-haired investor, leaned forward. His eyes were no longer cold. They were searching her face, listening not only to her words but to something beneath them. He spoke to her in Lithuanian, slowly at first, then faster, using phrases that no translation app would understand. Emily answered without hesitation. Not perfectly polished, not like a professor, but naturally. Warmly. Like someone who had learned the language from a human voice, not from a screen. Mr. Vitkis's expression changed. Richard noticed. What did he ask you? Richard demanded. Emily looked at him. He asked whether I learned from books or from someone who loved me. The room grew heavier. For a second, even Richard had no reply. Then the attorney stepped forward again, desperate to regain control. This is emotional manipulation. We are in a business negotiation, not a family reunion. Emily lowered her eyes to the contract folder on the table. The final pages were slightly misaligned, as if they had been replaced in a hurry. She had noticed it earlier when the investor pushed the folder away. A tiny detail. Something everyone else had ignored. I think he has a reason not to trust this contract, she said softly. Richard's face hardened. You think? Emily did not flinch. Yes. The attorney laughed. And now she is a legal expert too? No, Emily said. But I know when two sentences don't mean the same thing. That was when Mr. Vitkis turned sharply toward her. What did you say? Emily reached into her apron pocket. Her fingers touched the worn blue book she had carried for years. For a moment, the room blurred, and she saw her mother's tired hands turning those same pages under a yellow kitchen light. Richard pointed at her pocket. What are you hiding? Emily froze. It's personal, she said. Show it. The command was quiet, but cruel. Emily slowly pulled out the small blue book. Its cover was faded, its corners bent, its pages swollen from rain and time. A photograph slipped halfway out. Mr. Vitkis saw it. His face went pale. Emily held the photograph carefully. It showed a young man in a brown coat beside a train station, one hand raised in goodbye. My mother kept this inside the book, Emily whispered. Mr. Vitkis rose from his chair, trembling. Where did you get that picture? Emily looked at him, then at the name written on the back in faded ink. She told me, if I ever met someone named Vitkis, I should ask why the letters stopped. The photograph lay on the polished table like a tiny piece of weathered truth in a room built for polished lies. No one touched it at first. Richard Lawson stared at the young man in the brown coat, then at Emily, then at Mr. Vitkis. His face showed the look of a man trying to calculate whether emotion could threaten profit. The attorneys stopped whispering. Even the hotel staff near the wall seemed afraid to breathe too loudly. Mr. Vitkis reached for the photograph with trembling fingers. Where did you get this? He asked. Emily swallowed. From my mother. His thumb brushed the edge of the picture. Anna? The sound of her mother's name in his voice nearly broke her. Before Emily could answer, Richard's attorney snapped the contract folder shut. This has nothing to do with the deal. Emily turned toward him slowly. Something in her had changed. She was no longer just translating words. She was seeing the room clearly now, the panic behind expensive suits, the fear hidden beneath arrogance, the way everyone had been so focused on her uniform that they had missed the truth sitting openly in front of them. She looked at the contract. Then at the final page. Then at the older investor's handwritten notes beside his copy. May I see both versions? She asked. Richard frowned. Absolutely not. Mr. Vitkis did not look away from Emily. Give them to her. The attorney hesitated. Richard's voice dropped. Do not. But Mr. Vitkis spoke louder this time. If this deal is honest, there is nothing to fear. That sentence cut through the room sharper than any accusation. Slowly, with visible anger, the attorney slid both contract copies across the table. Emily opened them side by side. She was not a lawyer. She had no degree framed on an office wall. She had never sat in a boardroom except to refill glasses and clear plates. But she had spent years reading 2 languages line by line, word by word, because her mother had taught her that meaning could hide inside the smallest difference. Her finger moved down the English version. Then the Lithuanian translation. Then back again. The room watched her as if watching someone disarm a bomb. There it was. One sentence near the bottom of the penalty clause. In English, it said the investors could withdraw if delivery milestones failed due to Lawson's delays. In Lithuanian, the wording had been softened, twisted just enough to make the penalty fall on the investors instead. A small change. A quiet trap. Emily's hand stopped. "This sentence is not the same," she said. The attorney's face went white. Richard stood still. Emily read the English line aloud, then translated the Lithuanian version back into English. When she finished, the silence was so complete that the faint hum of the chandeliers could be heard above them. Mr. Waitress slowly closed his copy. "So it was hidden," he said. Richard turned on his attorney. "Is this true?" The attorney opened his mouth, but no words came out. Emily looked down at the blue book still resting near her hand. For years, that little book had been treated like a strange habit, a poor girl's useless attachment to a language no one cared about. And now, in a room where millions of dollars had failed to protect honest men, that same book had taught her how to see what everyone else missed. Mr. Waitress rose from his chair. He did not look at Richard. He looked only at Emily. "You did not save a deal tonight," he said softly. "You saved my trust." Richard's face darkened with shame, but Emily barely heard him. Her eyes were fixed on the old photograph in Mr. Waitress's hand. He turned it over. On the back, in faded ink, were 3 words Emily had read 100 times but never understood. "For Anna. Forgive me." Mr. Waitress pressed the photograph to his chest, and his voice broke. "This was my brother." Mr. Waitress held the photograph as if it were not paper, but a heartbeat he had lost years ago. "My younger brother," he said again, quieter this time. "Elias." Emily felt the name move through her like a door opening in a house she had never known she carried inside her. The room around them faded, the chandeliers, the contracts, Richard Lawson's frozen expression, the attorney's panic. All Emily could see was her mother sitting on the edge of a narrow bed, placing the blue book in her hands and asking for a promise she had not understood. Mr. Waitress looked at the faded picture. He came to America with almost nothing. He wrote to me about a woman named Anna. He said she was kind to him when no one else was. Emily's fingers tightened around the blue book. "My mother?" He nodded slowly. "She worked at a station cafe then. Elias had been robbed his first week here. No money. No coat. No English. People walked past him. Your mother didn't." Emily could almost see it, the train station, the winter air, a young man lost in a country too large for his fear, and her mother, not rich, not powerful, offering the only thing she had. A bowl of soup. A warm place to sit. A little kindness. Mr. Waitress continued, his voice shaking. "She helped him write letters home. She learned our language from him, 1 page at a time. He wanted to marry her." Emily's eyes filled. No one in the ballroom moved. "He died before he could return to Lithuania," Mr. Waitress said. "There was an accident at the docks. We were told Anna had disappeared. We sent letters for years. None came back." Emily opened the blue book with trembling hands. Between the pages were old notes, copied words, and small sentences written in 2 handwritings. Her mother's careful English. Another hand, stronger and slanted, writing Lithuanian phrases beside them. She had thought the book was only a lesson. It had been a love story. A goodbye. A bridge built by 2 poor people who had nothing to offer the world except tenderness. "My mother waited," Emily whispered. She thought your family forgot her. Mr. Vikas closed his eyes. Never. For the first time, Emily understood why her mother had kept teaching her the language even when life became hard, even when illness stole her strength, even when there was no practical reason for a waitress's daughter to speak Lithuanian in a city that barely noticed her. Anna had not been teaching Emily a skill. She had been keeping someone alive. Richard Lawson stood near the head of the table, his face drained of the arrogance he had worn all evening. The $10,000 he had thrown out as a joke suddenly seemed cheap, almost shameful. Emily looked at him, not with anger, but with a sadness that made him lower his eyes. You thought I was nothing, she said softly. Richard did not answer. Mr. Vikas stepped closer to Emily and placed the photograph back into her hands. No, he said. You are the reason the truth survived. Emily looked down at the blue book. Its pages were bent, stained by years of laundries, buses, hospitals, and rain. It had sat in her apron pocket like a secret no one cared to ask about. But every word inside it had been planted by an act of kindness long before Emily was born. A poor young woman had fed a hungry stranger. A lonely stranger had given her a language. A mother had passed that language to her daughter. And decades later, in a room full of powerful people, that forgotten kindness had become the one thing money could not buy. Richard finally spoke, his voice low. Emily. I owe you an apology. Emily looked at him. The room waited. But she did not smile. Not just me, she said. Her eyes moved to the staff standing silently along the wall, the servers, cleaners, guards, people who had spent the whole night being treated like furniture. You owe one to everyone you stopped seeing. Richard Lawson did something no one in that ballroom expected. He stepped away from the head of the table, walked toward the line of hotel staff near the wall, and stopped in front of the security guard who had grabbed Emily's arm. For a moment, the guard looked terrified, as if he were about to be fired in front of everyone. But Richard lowered his head. I put you in that position, he said quietly. I'm sorry. The guard blinked. Then Richard turned to the servers, the cleaners, the young busboy holding a stack of plates, the hotel manager whose face still carried fear like a bruise. I'm sorry to all of you, he said. Tonight I treated people like uniforms instead of human beings. No one clapped. It was too real for applause. Emily stood beside Mr. Vikas, holding the old blue book against her chest. She did not know what to do with Richard's apology. Part of her wanted to reject it. Another part of her, the tired part, the part that had spent years being invisible, simply wanted it to mean something. Mr. Vikas looked at Richard. The deal is finished for tonight. Richard nodded. I understand. But not forever, Mr. Vikas added. Richard looked up. Mr. Vikas placed one hand gently on Emily's shoulder. If we continue, it will be with a new legal team, a transparent contract, and her as the official interpreter. Emily turned to him, stunned. Me? Yes, he said. Not because you saved me money. Because you protected the truth when everyone else was protecting themselves. Richard did not argue. The next morning, the story did not appear in the newspapers. No one posted a video online. Mr. Vikas made sure of that. He said Emily's life was not entertainment for strangers. It was a life that deserved dignity. But quietly, everything changed. Richard fired the attorney responsible for the altered clause and ordered an internal review of every foreign contract his company had signed that year. He also created a staff scholarship fund at the Grand Meridian, though Emily insisted it should not carry his name. It should carry my mother's, she said. So it did. The Anna Carter Language Scholarship began with 12 hotel workers in its first class, a housekeeper studying Spanish, a valet learning Japanese, a cook learning French, and a security guard who chose Lithuanian because, as he told Emily with a shy smile, I want to understand what saved us. Mr. Vikas stayed in the city for 2 weeks. He took Emily to the old train station where Elias had once stood in the brown coat. He told her stories about the uncle she had never met, about a young man who sang badly, laughed loudly, and believed kindness was the only wealth worth carrying across an ocean. At the platform, Mr. Waitress handed Emily a small envelope. Inside was a letter Elias had written to Anna but never sent. Emily read only the first line before tears blurred the page. "My dear Anna, if I ever have a daughter, I hope she has your courage." Months later, Emily no longer entered ballrooms through side doors. She became a certified interpreter, then a cultural liaison for international negotiations. She still wore simple clothes. She still kept the blue book in her bag. And whenever she sat at polished tables across from powerful men, she remembered the night they laughed at a waitress and accidentally gave her the microphone. As for the $10,000, Richard did pay it. Emily accepted it on one condition. Every cent went into the scholarship fund. Years later, when people asked her how one poor waitress changed a $200 million deal, Emily never talked about revenge. She never talked about luck. She would simply touch the old blue book and say, "Someone was kind before I was born. I only carried it forward." Because sometimes the smallest act of kindness does not disappear. It waits. It travels through years, through grief, through forgotten letters and tired hands, until one day it stands in a bright room where no one expects it, speaks in a language everyone underestimated, and changes everything. So before you judge someone by their uniform, their shoes, or the job they do to survive, remember this: every quiet person may be carrying a story louder than your pride. And if this story touched your heart, leave a like, share it with someone who needs to believe in kindness again, subscribe for more stories like this, and comment below. Kindness always returns.